Hey Legacy community, it's Terramaster and welcome to the finale of What's in the BoGX. Today is going to be a really fun episode. There are a ton of cards to talk about. And let's just get into it. You know what? Let's just go. I don't want to wait anymore. This is going to be an amazing episode. I love all these cards. So let's just go, man. Doom Caliber Knight is what we're going to start. 1900 has already been established as kind of a baseline in speed duels, so getting Doom Cal Knight would actually be insane. Can't be special summoned, so that's a cool restriction to have on it. And it mandatory tributes itself to negate an effect of a monster that's activated. Most importantly, I think this card is needed because it negates Parasite Paranoid. And yeah, it takes itself off the field, but that's really cool. It can just trade 1-for-1 with a Breaker normal summon when Breaker gets summoned and activated. So this card can do a lot of cool things. A very important counter to have to Parasite Paranoid. Speaking of counters to cards that will special summon, that was a horrible transition, I apologize. We've got Thunder King Ryo. Now, Ryo does two really cool things that are anti-meta, not including the 1900 beater here. And that is, first of all, it is stopping any searching from the deck. So there's been a lot of search cards if you've seen like the rest of this series. So this not only stops all those, but also stops some of our current cards that are searching. Like we already have Rhoda in there, so it stops that. It stops. In addition to that, it can negate a special summon exactly one time. Now this used to have a weird ruling back in the day. Now someone tell me whether or not this ruling still exists. But I think this is like it only negates inherent special summons. So not a special summon by the effect of a card, but a special summon that's inherent. So for example, if we get Chaos Sorcerer, it can negate Chaos Sorcerer, but it can't negate Polymerization, which fusion summons a monster. Now let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's how the card at least used to work, and I don't know if it still works that way now. So let me know, the judges who watch this video, let me know if I'm right or wrong on that. But either way, I think whether it is or not, Ryo is still a really cool card, really sick card. I remember I used to love playing this card as anti-meta back when I used to play the TCG. So it'll be really cool to see this card in speed duels. And I think we're going to get it because I think some anti-meta strategies are becoming more and more necessary as we progress through like speed duel. Kind of the game kind of gets more heavy into special summoning. So it'll be nice to have something like this. Fisher, obviously staple monster removal. We got Hammer Shot, so Fisher is the next natural progression for that. So that's why it's here. So is Soul Taker. Targeted destruction is extremely lacking in speed duel. Soul Taker is essentially there to like kind of power creep offerings, but you don't get the quick play benefit. So kind of not. It's like to provide like a counterbalance to offerings to the Doom. It gives you a spell card that targets and destroys, but without the drawback, but also without the quick play ability. Spell speed 1. Forbidden Chalice here. This is one of my favorite cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! History, where it can negate a monster's effect, but it also has a gain 400 attack. So you can use it for attack manipulation as a battle trick, a damage step trick, and a effect negation of a face-up monster, or both. So this card is actually like really cool. I love this card. This is the kind of card that I think we need more of in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. Just because it's such a skill card, I think, that having this card present in a format just automatically makes that format more skillful. So I see us getting this card, and I think I hope that Yu-Gi-Oh! GX box kind of really puts us more speed duel format, more in that direction of being more skill heavy rather than like, hey, who can OTK first kind of a thing. Galaxy Cyclone is also a really good card. Not that I think we need more back row hate, but I think that having something like Galaxy Cyclone is going to combo very well with specifically Gear Town and the Ancient Gear archetype that we talked about earlier. So that's the primary reason I think we're going to get Galaxy Cyclone, but it's also a staple because it not only destroys face down set spell traps when it's activated, like normally, but then it can also be banished from the graveyard to target face-up spell traps. So, all that considered, I thought it's more of a staple because it's kind of can be potentially too back row hate. So remember, this is really cool where if Zoma doesn't get banned, this can be a good counter to Zoma. Speaking of good counters to Zoma, you've got MST, which can do that, which you don't have to pay 1,000 life points like Cosmic Cyclone, and it's not a trap, so you can go ahead and just slap it from your hand instead of Dust Tornado, so that's really good. So I think this power creep on Dust Tornado and Cosmic Cyclone is completely fine to have in the format. MST is okay, especially if, like I said, Zoma's not going to get hit, and Nightmare Wheel might still be a pest to be around. So MST, very important, because there's a lot of like continuous stall crap in Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle traps aren't good in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway, so in speed duels anyway, so there's no issue in my mind to giving us MST. Let me know if you disagree, obviously, on this more back row hate, but I think it's fine. Speaking of battle traps aren't very good, Deep Prison, we're probably still going to get more battle traps. I think a card I forgot as I'm thinking about battle traps, and I am such an idiot for skipping this card and going straight to Deep Prison. Like, how did I not go ahead and include this one before Deep Prison? Anyway, I think we're going to get Sakuretsu Armor. I think we're going to get, we're not going to get Deep Prison. Let me take that out. Sorry, live edits here, live edits. So Sakuretsu Armor, I think, is the card we're going to get. Not Deep Prison. Sorry about that. I don't know why I thought we already had Sakuretsu Armor, and like, I just realized, like, no, we don't. It's Widespread Ruin is the one we already have. I'm sorry about that, guys. I just messed up there. Whoops. Then we've got Drowning Mirror Force. Now, the reason I think we're going to get this card is very simple. One, they gave it to us very early on in Duel Links, right? So that's why we're going to get it. Battle traps are already not that good in speed duels, so it's not that much of an issue. And then thirdly, you can play around Drowning Mirror Force, obviously, by not direct attacking when your opponent has that back row that they haven't used on any of your other plays. So, Drowning Mirror Force, actually not that bad, but when you do get hit by it, oh, I'm so sorry. Next card is Intercept. So, this card is really good to specifically counter Monarchs. And Monarchs, obviously, are a big part of speed duels right now. And I think they could potentially be after the box. Whether or not Conflict is banned, we'll go into that in a minute here. So, if a monster is tribute summoned with one tribute, so Monarchs, and it just lets you counter trap, take control of that monster. Now, this is really cool. Plus, it's a counter trap, so your opponent can't chain spell speed 2 or lower to it. So, a lot of cool stuff here. Spell speed 2 or lower. Your opponent can't chain spell speed 2 to it, as if spell speed 1 can ever be chained. What am I saying? Really nice anti-Monarch trap here, and I do believe we're going to see this just to have side deck in case Monarchs become a pain. Needle Sealing is a really cool strategy kind of card, where it's only usable where there's 4 or more monsters on the field, and you destroy all face-up monsters. So this can be really cool, kind of if you're doing like a set strategy, like Pac-Man, for example, right? And you have 2 cards set, your opponent summons 2 monsters, boom, Needle Sealing, you've destroyed both of their monsters, you still got your sets. So really cool card here, a lot of potential here. The next thing is, since we already have Odeon, I think we'll get a couple of Paleozoics here just to get that kind of rolling. And I've picked kind of the couple of the more powerful ones. You've got Canadia, which is kind of like Book of Moon, and then obviously the Paleozoics, when a trap card is activated while they're in the grave, they can summon themselves as a 1200 attack normal monster. So that's something there too. So I think this is kind of cool, and I do think we'll see Canadia, since it's like, in some ways it's a worse Book of Moon, but if your deck has enough trap cards, it's a better Book of Moon as well. So we'll see whether or not we get Canadia. I think we will, because again, they gave us pretty early on in Duel Links. Same with Hallucigenia. It's like a trap card version of Shrink, which again, like the Paleozoic, summons itself in the graveyard later on. So, pretty cool here. I think we'll see both of these, because Duel Links had them pretty early on too. And they're actually kind of balanced, fair cards. So I would like to see like a little more like trap diversity in speed duels than what we have now. And I think these two probably help us in getting there. Pulling the Rug is also another really cool card. Since, as you've noticed, this negates effects that activate when they're normal summoned and destroys that effect monster. And then if you notice, kind of like through this series, there's been a lot of monsters that trigger when they're normal summoned. In addition to that, this also hits Monarchs really hard. So between Pulling the Rug and Intercept, having 2 counter traps to stop Monarchs is actually really good. So this is, I think, the perfect time for me to also go into the unlikely cards. Caius, which banishes a card, potentially does burn damage. You've got Mobius, which clears back row. You've got Ryza, which stacks a card on top of the deck. You've got Thestalos, which is hand control, potential burn damage, and you've got Zaborg, which is potential monster removal. Any monster, face up, face down, doesn't matter. A lot of cool effects there with these monarchs. Speaking of monarchs, Treeborn Frog is in here. Now this I think is unlikely no matter what, because kind of frog monarch decks were really meta for quite a while in the TCG, and I don't think Speed Duels is ready for that, especially if Conflict is still around. And even if Conflict is banned, I don't think Speed Duels is ready for that. So I hope we don't get Treeborn Frog. I don't see it happening. However, again, like I've been saying with a lot of these unlikely cards, don't be surprised if Konami's like, here's Treeborn Frog. Excuse me. Have fun, kids. So, yeah. Let's move back into the likely cards, though, since that's kind of all the Monarch talk I've got for you. Trap Hole. I'm actually surprised we don't have Trap Hole yet. We got Floodgate Trap Hole. So, like, they're just scared sometimes to have, like, direct removal traps. But you know what? Trap Hole is completely fine at this point. You want to normal summon a 1900 beater or breaker or something like that, it's fine for you to have to worry about Trap Hole. I think Trap Hole is a balanced card, even in a 4000 life point format. You know, you should be able to protect yourself with secondary play once the format has progressed as far as GX, I think. I think this is the right time to give us Trap Hole, and I think we're going to get it. Ultimate Providence is another really cool card. It's a counter trap, which can negate anything potentially. However, you only get to activate it if you have the right type of card to discard for cost. So if you're trying to get a monster effect, you have to discard a monster, etc. So I think that's why it's a very balanced counter trap, and I do see us getting that. So give me Ultimate Providence. This is a kind of like skill card in a way as well, because depending on you knowing what your opponent's deck is, you might have to like save that particular type of card in your hand when you set the Providence. So this could potentially be a really, really cool skill-based card like Forbidden Chalice, and that's why I want to see it in Speed Duels. Ballista Squad is another really cool card where you contribute a monster and then target a monster your opponent can destroy it. Now, in a lot of circumstances, this is kind of a 2-for-1, right? Because you're losing a monster and a trap to pop one card. However, it can be positive in two ways. So one, if your opponent has put multiple resources into summoning one card, Ballista Squad then either evens out for you or gives you an advantage. And then second, if your opponent is like trying to remove one of your monsters that you would tribute anyway, then you tribute that monster, and instead of getting removed by your opponent's effect, it's now been tributed as a cost to pop on your opponent's other cards. So a lot of uses for Ballista Squad here. Again, I think it's a very skill-oriented card, so that's why I want to see it. Raigeki Break is same thing, right? Discard a card, target card, field, destroy it. Now again, this is a 2-for-1, but if you use it right, if you discard the right card, or if you time this card right, or if you use it on a boss monster, this can also be really, really good. So because of that, I think Raigeki Break has some skill to it as well, so I'd like to see Raigeki Break in the format, and I think we're going to get it. System Down is just a counter, essentially, to Unions, right? An additional counter to Unions, instead of having to play Lost Wind and things like that, where it's like a spell speed 1, just drop it from your hand, counter to Unions. You pay 1,000 life points, banish all machine time monster opponent controls and their graveyard, so it also clears their graveyard, which is why it's arguably better than Lost Wind, right? So I think we'll get System Down, just because it's also one of the answers to Jinzo as well, like an instant answer to Jinzo, obviously if they're not playing Spellproof, that is. So yeah, System Down we'll probably get, since Unions, they're probably like, let's just give them another thing. Also, remember, Cyber Dragons and Ancient Gears are probably coming in this set, so System Down also gives you an out to those archetypes as well. So just for the sake of having a side deck card, I think we're going to see more like side strategies also come into play here in the GX box. If you've kind of noticed, I've been trending in the direction of like, a lot of times I'm like, hey, this is a side deck card, this is a side deck card, this is a side deck card. So I'm hoping we get a lot more cards like that. That's like, hey, you kind of have to know the meta, you have to know what you're going to go up against, you have to know your deck's weaknesses, and you have to use your side deck to cover for those weaknesses. I'd really like to see that. Speaking of which, Acid Rain is another option for System Down. Now, I have these both in here, but I feel like we're going to get one or the other and not necessarily both. So Acid Rain just straight up destroys all machine monsters on the field face up. No, nothing fancy, just pure side deck counter strategy. It's like, remember Warrior Elimination back in the day? Pretty much like that. Non-fusion area is essentially a side deck card for fusion meta. Now, I do have this in here because I do think we're going to get it, and this is another reason why I go ahead and threw MST and stuff like Galaxy Cyclone in here too. because I think with more side deck strategy, you have to have, especially non-fusion area, I really like to see a fusion meta, and I hope because it's going to be a GX themed meta, that fusion meta is the direction that we're going to go, where fusion at least is competitive in a couple of decks. So non-fusion area is obviously going to be an easy side deck target. However, then having access to things like MST also allows you to get rid of non-fusion area just as easily. Necro Fusion obviously is part of the fusion meta type of theme that I've been going for here, where you fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials in your graveyard face down, so you can't use those banished cards ever again for the most part. And it can't attack the turn it's summoned, but this is why you kind of would want to use it on your opponent's turn, maybe to like summon something to block an attack or doing during the end phase, and then you can go ahead and have it attack on your turn. So very cool, generic kind of graveyard fusion here. I really like this. I think this card is necessary if we're going to see a fusion meta of any kind, so that's why I have it in here, and I am really thinking we're going to get it, because like I said, fusion meta is probably the right direction to go with a GX themed era of speed duels. Snipe Hunter, you discard a card, target card on the field, you roll a die, 67% chance of destroying it. Snipe Hunter can be a lot of fun, and as somebody who streams, you know, speed duel tournaments, I would love to see some sick Snipe Hunter moments and some sick Snipe Hunter fails, let's be honest. But it's very powerful, especially if combined with the right discard fodder. That's why I think it's unlikely, just because I think it's still a little bit too powerful to have multiple removal effects go off with just the same card in one turn. We'll see if Konami gives it to us, though I highly, highly doubt it. Same thing with Wall of Disruption. I think they found out when they gave this to us in Duel Links that this card was probably too powerful for the time that it was given. It was too early. And I think similarly to that, even though battle traps are generally bad speed duels right now, if you get a Wall of Disruption off, you can really just win the game based off of that, and it really causes your opponent to like not want to be aggressive at all if this card's in the formats. For those reasons, I don't really like Wall of Disruption, so I don't think they're going to give it to us. I think Konami, this will be something they'll be like, we regret giving it in Duel Links so early, and they kind of learn a lesson from that, and then not give it to us in speed duels so early. But it could be wrong, which is why again it's on here. Fiendish Chain, same thing. I think Duel Links proved to us, and so does the TCG honestly, that this card whenever it comes out is probably going to be a staple. Now the only reason I even ever considered this was because there's so much back row hate in speed duels, where like I'm like actively considering giving you a side deck against all fusion decks, right? However, Fiendish Chain I think is way more generic, which is why I hesitated to just kind of throw it in there. But because of the back row hate, it's not impossible. But remember, when this card has shown up in past Yu-Gi-Oh formats, it's become a staple for a while, almost instantly as soon as it shows up. So don't be surprised if that happens. But it's frankly because of that reason where Konami's, I think, not going to give it to us, despite having a lot of answers to it in the format already. Karma Cut is similar. Karma Cut became a staple when it was given in Duel Links, and if you want to give us any kind of graveyard synergy, having Karma Cut is very dangerous. It's one thing to have something like Raigeki Break or Ultimate Providence, which is Ultimate Providence is one situational for discarding the right monsters, and Raigeki Break destroys, which a lot of things can then like trigger off of destruction or float off of destruction, whereas Karma Cut straight up banishes the monster and also takes care of all your monsters with the same name in your opponent's graveyard. So it might be too powerful for right now, but some point we'll get this card abso-freaking-lutely. Probably just not right now. We'll probably have to wait on getting Karma Cut. Breakthrough Skill is just something I think that was brought up in like some Discord conversations. But I thought about it and I was like, you know, there's quite a bit of monster effect negation kind of already that I've kind of discussed. So I think giving a double effect monster negation is probably a little bit over the top right now for speed duel, since we don't even have that many like field monster effects anyway. So I think this is kind of a card that you would print for speed duels as an answer to having too many good effect monsters, right? Where like if the GX meta ends up being like, hey, a lot of monsters go ahead and activate their effects on the field, and these are very powerful effects, and we need to give players an answer to these very powerful monsters on the field effects, then you can give something like Breakthrough Skill. So I think this is kind of a card that will be printed later on as a reaction to having too many powerful field effect monsters. Cup of Ace, I think it's just like a meme-ish card. And this is in here because Sartorius. So this is one of those, like, I think it's very unlikely that we get Sartorius as a character for the GX box. I think we'll get him later on in the GX era of Speed Duels. But this is like, Sartorius is unlikely, so Cup of Ace is unlikely. However, if Sartorius is a character, then Cup of Ace would be a card we would get, almost guaranteed, right? I didn't put some of the other Sartorius cards in here just because I just kind of wanted to have this kind of as an example of like, hey, remember Sartorius is a thing, so it's not impossible to get Sartorius. However, I don't think it's going to happen. The next card is Armageddon Knight and Dark Grifford. I'm kind of going to talk about these together because they're both essentially have the same purpose of sending dark monsters from your deck to your graveyard. Now, the reason I don't see this happening is because I don't want to see Speed Duels go in a direction of like Foolish Burial, these cards, just set up graveyards immediately. At this point, I think I'm still kind of happy with us having like very limited graveyard effects, and then just going mostly with like what's on your hand and what's on the field and what's in your hand. So I think because of that, and a fusion era makes a lot more sense, fusion meta, by not having things like that go on. So I think we're not going to go towards like a full graveyard meta yet, which is really what these cards would be there to help accomplish. And that's why I think we're going to hold off on these. We'll probably get these cards later when they're trying to introduce like a big archetype or strategy that relies on dark monsters in the graveyard. But we're not there yet. So I think hold off on more foolish burial effects, especially ones that are this powerful that come with a body. So probably not these, especially because Rhoda can search them. But you never know, like, because if we do get things like Necro, then these cards could be absolutely insane. So we'll see if this happens, but I doubt it right now. Droll and Lockbird is an interesting card. Now, this is a hand trap that can stop searching. Now, I know for people who played the TCG when Droll and Lockbird came out, this card was an absolute nightmare because you'd have to play around it. And the reason this card's not here, I think, is because we're not quite ready for hand traps that are like not extremely specific to battle phase like Spherical Rebo yet. So I don't think we're going to get Droll and Lockbird just yet, but don't be surprised if eventually Speed Duels does go more into the hand trap era. But this was just something I had a thought in my mind, like, do we need more hand traps in Speed Duels? And the answer is no, not yet. And if you want to stop your opponent from searching cards, I'm already predicting Thunder King Ryo is going to be there. So Droll and Lockbird, I know more hand traps. I've personally brought up this conversation before, but I just don't think it's going to happen right now. So yeah, we're going to hold off on hand traps for Speed Duels right now, guys. At least that's what I think. That's my opinion on it. Hand traps are probably going to come further on. Probably not even in the GX era. Probably even after that. So yeah. So hey, we did it. We made it through every single piece of what I want to predict that's going to be in the Duel Academy box. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Let me know if there's a card you think I missed. Let me know if there's a card where you think, Terramaster, you're stupid, there's no way we're going to get this card. Just let me know your thoughts on this and how excited you are for any of these archetypes, any of these staples. But yeah, I will see you for the next one. And I'm super hyped to start doing Battle City. Not Battle City. We already did that. To start doing GX box content. Konami, give me the leaks now that my predictions are out, and we'll see how right I am. But until then, Terramaster out.